Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 40 of On the Flank, the Big 4-0. I am one of your hosts, John George, alongside Joe Kirkpatrick. Say hello, Joe.
Hey everybody.
Joe, how's it feeling to be on 40, the 40th episode?
It's crazy. I guess that's like 10 months, but we still have 12 more weeks, so it's like 9 months.
Yeah. Oh my
Gotta
god.
love
Yeah,
30 and 31 day months.
it's almost been, we started this in like August of last year, so it's almost been an entire year. We're getting close to 50. It's gonna be a big one. Episode 40, not gonna be as big, Joe. Right? We don't have too much on the docket today.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have to stretch out like 4 weeks of off season into whatever it was.
Yeah, and we could have fit this Pacific Atlantic Showdown stuff in here. We'll briefly go over them, but me and Joe, to be honest, didn't watch too much of it. So yeah, we took this off season or this little mid-season break to heart, and we actually took breaks and from watching Overwatch specifically. So we didn't watch too much of either the Atlantic or Pacific, but we'll briefly go over results. We could have talked about Pacific last week on our show because it's been done for a little bit now, but um, yeah, the Pacific the Pacific Showdown went down, which if you don't know is um, a nice little LAN event between all the contenders from Pacific area, which is Australia, China, Korea, and Pacific contenders in a double elimination bracket. It was the finalist of contenders Korea, finalist of contenders China, and then the champion of contenders Pacific and Australia. So 6 teams. And Element Mystic ended up winning it in a 4-2 series against O2 Blast. So the two Korean teams were the ones that were in the championship in the end. And of course, I believe, well, actually, yeah, there was one of the Chinese teams, the one winner, made it to the losers finals, and then so they got third, and then Talon Esports from Pacific contenders got fourth, and then Order and Lingen Esports got fifth and sixth. So Element Mystic is, I mean, O2 Blast I've heard of before, but most of these teams I haven't heard too much of before, and organizations either. But Element Mystic's a very recognizable name. Obviously, most of their players from last season are in Overwatch League now, so it's a completely new team. But it's a good team, apparently, Joe.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's as far as, like a competitive format goes, I really like at least the idea of trying to have this showdown type structure. I mean, bringing together all the different regions. Eventually, we'll have the gauntlet later in like October or something. I feel like, yeah, October. And to be able to see, yeah, all these teams play together, is super cool. Um, I imagine, if you're like us and you didn't go back and watch it, it's probably worth watching. The finals or the last couple of matches, especially.
Yeah, I definitely think so. So winning, in relation to the gauntlet, I believe winning the Pacific Showdown earned Contenders Korea, one additional invite to the gauntlet. So they determined, I guess, the last two invitations to the gauntlet of their 10 teams in the gauntlet. They determined their region based off who performed well in these showdowns. Korea won, so they earned that extra invite. While if we talk about the Atlantic Showdown real quick, that happened a lot more recently. Um, Fusion University won that one in dominant fashion, per usual, and they earned an additional invite for North America East. Or maybe not. Or just maybe North America in general. I don't know.
Uh,
On the
let's see.
Wikipedia page, I'm confused.
There's two North America East and two North America West spots.
Yep, which is confusing me.
Yeah, it's not even. So yeah, I don't know.
But that's still a lot of, yeah, I don't know. That's still a lot of spots for North America. But the Atlantic Showdown was between the champion of NA East, champion of NA West, um, and then runner up the runners-up of East and West faced off for the last spot, and that went to Atlanta Academy, and then you had champions of Korean or contenders South America, and the finalists of contenders Europe, which were the British Hurricane and Angry Titans, and then Loki Esports was the South American representative. But yeah, this was pretty NA dominated event. That's all I heard on Twitter all the time, and when I was watching briefly, is that NA just dominated basically, and EU contenders fans were in shambles.
Yeah, the only probably the closest match across the Atlantic was Team Envy versus British Hurricane. I mean, I think this was like the one map of any of the gauntlets that I actually watched just because it happened to be on, and like British Hurricane won the very first control map 200-0, and it wasn't looking good. But then of course Team Envy went all the way and got second.
Mm-hmm.
In the whole tournament. But yeah, it's probably the closest series. But yeah, Fusion University 3-0'd Angry Titans, who, where did they even come from? Oh, they got a bye the first time. Yeah. But yeah, it was the rest of it wasn't so close.
No, Fusion University continues their dominance, and they're dominating so much. We're gonna make this go into our news segment here. They're dominating so much, Joe, that they have decided that they're going to be playing in Korea Contenders Trials. Now, that's not the main reason. The main reason is they're mostly made of Korean players now, and there's a little lock on regional players in Contenders, so they kind of have to move to Korea, unless they want to drop their players.
Drop half their team.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't even when I heard this news, I was like, "Is this a joke?" Like, I thought it was a joke for a second, like they won and now they're jokingly like North America's too bad for us, because I didn't think they could actually move to Korea as Fusion University. I thought they had to since they represented Philadelphia, they had to stay in North America, but that's not true apparently, Joe.
Yeah, evidently not.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see them in Korean Contenders, especially since they've just ever since last Contenders year in 2018, they have been the dominating force in whatever Contenders division they've been in. They've always won. They just lost their first game this past season, so it'll be interesting to see them against Korean teams constantly instead of these other teams that, I mean, some of them have been able to challenge Fusion University, but not too many people have been able to touch how good their roster has been and their coaching.
They only dropped one map in the Atlantic Showdown to Team Envy. Yeah, it's even with a flexible roster. I mean, they brought Snillo in here for the Showdown. It sounds like he's also. I think I read he's also traveling with them to Korea. Because it sounds like they're actually going to Korea to compete, which I guess makes sense. Elk, who's signed 2 ways, but he'll be. It sounds like he'll be spending the rest of the season on Fusion University specifically.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's going. And then big names, if you've been following the team, I think probably knew this season or the last couple of seasons because I didn't recognize they've added a support player, I think, called Karkar. But people like Bernard and Alarm are still there. Yeah, it's a really good team.
Yeah.
And I was mentioning before the show, too, that I suppose going to Korea means that they could to try to get Who Are You back from Meta Athena and compete with Who Are You. I don't know if that's something they have a plan to do or not, but that could be interesting.
Possible, definitely possible. But that's an interesting move, and I'm excited. It's going to shake up North America too, because we won't be seeing Fusion University just win all the time. So it's just going to be a big shake-up in the contender scene in total, and I got to respect the move from Fusion University. They've even mentioned in posts on Twitter that this move matters to them most because they've always used it sort of as a place to farm those players to bring them to Overwatch League to Philadelphia Fusion, obviously. And I think they've been one of the contenders teams that have obviously used their contenders team to perfection, compared to other organizations and a bunch of organizations who have had to disband their contenders team or discontinue it for the time being because they just have been running it pretty poorly, or can't afford to run it because they aren't even running their Overwatch League team correctly yet. So, um, props to Fusion University. This is a good move for them, especially if they want more Korean players. I mean, that's what you have to do with the region lock, you know.
Yeah, and challenge them, seeing what they're made of. I mean, if nothing else, if they move over to Korea and then continue to have this kind of success, that's good for the players. Even if they aren't picked up by a team like Fusion, to have that cross team experience outside of like the Gauntlet, but just like in a regular season, that's gonna be super cool.
Yeah, totally agree. And we haven't seen. I mean, has how many players? Because there were a bunch of players on Fusion University that just didn't end up going to Fusion. Like Zach went to Dallas Fuel and all that stuff. But we've seen like Elk go up to Philadelphia Fusion and stuff like that. So it's not like guaranteed. I think one of the issues is it's not guaranteed that player is going to your Overwatch League team, which I think some people are upset
Yeah.
about. But so we could
Yeah, I think
we could see these players on any team.
yeah, I think it's something like the parent org has like right of first refusal or something
Yeah,
for if they do get a contract.
yeah. So I don't know if it's been, maybe it has just been their fault. Maybe they've just been like, well, we don't care about Zach or anyone that much. We'll take the money for them taking this player or something like that. But yeah, we have some more Florida news, of course. Just all over the place. But yeah, we've got apply to Vic, awesome guy who is now SNT. Is that right, Joe?
Yeah, yeah, he's as of this season, I think. Um, he's been a sub for Florida, but also kind of a coach. But yeah, for this whole season, basically.
Yeah. They are officially off Florida Mayhem. Officially. So.
Yeah.
Um,
So now that it's on paper, Florida is actually officially now an all-Korean roster.
yeah.
So congratulations, you did it. Hopefully it was worth it.
I think you just summed it up perfectly. Congratulations, you did it. You've made a Korean roster, as if that is like the hardest thing to do.
Yeah. So for all of you with Florida Mayhem Whiplash at home, their roster now going into Stage 3 is Saya Player, Zephyr, Hagapun, Chris, BQB, Swan, and Fate from that trade with the Valiant.
Mm-hmm.
So 7 players. Oh, and Byram also.
Yes.
I missed him.
Yeah. So completely. What's interesting is Awesome Guy is Korean, so they
It's true.
that's they spit in his face. Everyone else they dropped is not Korean, but they said no, we don't want you, even though we have all Koreans. Um, but yeah, I mean, making an all Korean roster is one thing, and winning is another. So they're gonna have to do the second one as well. Um,
I feel like we always say this. Apologies to the Florida Mayhem fans,
yes.
but they've got quite a lot to prove.
I mean,
I think
even Joe, even the one guest we've ever had is affiliated with the Florida Mayhem, so
it's true. It's true.
we have to thank them in some ways, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, in other news, over at Toronto, Asher has retired. He's been Asher's been here since last year. Asher was on
Gladiators.
yeah. And now he made his way to Toronto this year, and he is now retiring from Overwatch. We're seeing more and more retirements around here, which is kind of sad.
Yeah. I think he probably played more in 2 stages for Toronto than he did in a season for
Yeah.
LA.
Yeah,
So I mean that's something. But
yeah. I mean, to be fair, the Gladiators had like a rotation going, so He definitely was more of a mainstay in Toronto. That didn't have a they don't have a DPS rotation really going until they've added I'm 37, of course. Uh, to be commissioner very soon, maybe.
Yeah. They might need Asher back in that case.
Yeah,
Going out there.
that's true. But they've
A
now
couple more
had
DPS
the
players.
Toronto Defiant have now had two of their DPS players retire in the middle of the season. Stellar last month, and now Asher, which is
Yeah.
not fun for them, obviously. But they'll make do. This is, I mean, they just picked up two people from their contenders roster. Neither of them are DPS players, but uh, they've still got a good amount of people on their roster. They got 9, yes, 9 player roster. So, and they can always get more. Me and Joe obviously haven't been that impressed by Toronto so far. So the more people that retire, the worse. But well, I'm still rooting for Toronto. I like Bishop. I love Gods. So now I'm rooting for Toronto a little bit more here.
Yeah.
Anything else to say about those 3 pieces of news before we already get into our predictions?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's talk about these predictions, talk about these roster changes. That it occurred to me earlier today that we actually haven't, at the time of recording, we haven't gotten official map pool for stage 3. I guess it might be posted like in the matches,
Wow.
and we haven't gotten. We don't officially know what patch they're playing on. I assume it's not, or I assume it's the live patch currently. But like
yeah.
we haven't gotten any of that officially yet. Usually they put out like a press release or like a OverwatchLeague.com article,
Yeah.
but they haven't yet.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's the live patch though. And yeah, no map pool yet. No map pool at all.
I think it was like Super or something who supposedly leaked on stream that that Paris was in, but I mean that's not super surprising.
That's one map. We got
Yeah.
one map. It is hard to predict. It's harder for us to do predictions if we don't know the maps, Joe. This is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get mad at Overwatch League if I get things wrong. I have every
Yeah.
right.
And of course, based on our luck, either like immediately after we've stopped recording, or probably tomorrow on Tuesdays when they'll release all that information. But
Yeah.
still,
There was one more piece of news that came out from Richard Lewis that is still a rumor. But I think it's very important to Blizzard Esports, which is Overwatch League, obviously, also some Hearthstone and Call of Duty World League, which is adding city-based teams as well. But apparently there are a bunch of more high-profile Blizzard staff that are going to leave. Of course, we saw Nate Nancer leave, but according to Richard Lewis, they're they have some morale problems, specifically because of Pete Velistelka, who we talked about last week on our show, who's supposed to be the sort of interim commissioner of the Overwatch League. But apparently he's not too good of a guy, because he one source said the focus has become commercializing the esports titles instead of making good programs for the community. Many people internally are laying that on Pete, and it has crushed morale among the Call of Duty and Overwatch teams especially. So apparently Pete is focused a lot more on making those big dollar bills, while everyone else on the team was very not focused on that, and more with making a fantastic community and a fantastic league that everybody would love. So morale is extremely down. You don't like to see that, Joe, do you? You really don't.
yeah, no, and you don't like to hear those reports either. I mean, that's not something I'd read, but yeah, it's not super good sounding. You gotta hope they're shooting for more than that. For some of these titles, we saw in the last 6 months probably that they're turning it down a lot. Their support for Hearthstone, like the whole game completely, but also their esports, stuff like that. We just want to see as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. I mean, right? I think this quote from supposedly another source hits home for me best. They said right now there's a feeling that a lot of the senior management just don't understand esports, but there's no room for negotiating with these people. They are convinced their vision, which is more in line with televised sports, is the right way to go, and has just made people miserable. Um, Over here, and I'm working with Echo Fox, obviously, and I've seen so many esports decisions from a lot of orgs in League of Legends. Definitely not Echo Fox, but a lot of other ones that, especially League of Legends, who have been bought out by so many NBA organizations. We've seen people who are more successful, and those people are the ones who say, okay, I'm going to own this. I own this team or league or whatever, but I don't know that much about esports. I just have money and I'm into sports competition. So I'm going to let the people who know esports sort of control and run this for me. And those people are the most successful people and the most successful teams. Um, and it seems like with the Overwatch League, you had people like Nate Nancer, you had people who really cared about esports, versus Pete, who comes from sort of Fox Sports and all these traditional sporting things, sort of butting heads, whereas Pete and them sort of think they're right just because they have that experience in sports. While they don't realize esports is a little bit different. While I do think there are similarities, I think esports definitely has some differences, especially in their audience, because
Yeah.
most of their audience, I would say a majority of their audience, have not watched sports before, or just grew up playing video games and are not that into sports and like to be entertained in different ways. So you have to take that into consideration, which is very sad that Pete and them aren't doing that. They got to be more open. They got to have some self-awareness that maybe they don't know as much about esports as these people who were clearly hired by Blizzard because they know a lot about video games. So that's rough.
Yeah. Hopefully it's whatever reports are exaggerated. Hopefully.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about working with Butler Esports as well, Joe. Is when we were working with the top people at Butler and they wanted to support us, they were asking us about everything. They weren't telling us what to do. They were like, they were asking me and probably Luke now what they should do and how they should do it. Because they know that we know more. We were just college students. We didn't have any experience that they had, but they were still super open to just say, like, I know nothing about this, like, help us. And you need more people like that, because obviously people like us in esports, we're not like the rich millionaire people who can own these teams, but we know more than most of the rich millionaires that are buying these teams now, Joe.
Yeah. At least the theory of things.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's my little rant. That'll make the episode a little bit longer.
It'll work out. It'll work out.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
it's just that's what they get when they have a long season or a long season break.
yeah, you get all this morale dragged down apparently. Um, but yeah, let's move on to predictions. We're heading to stage 3. Season is halfway done. We're beginning off. We've got 4 games to predict. Joe, do you have the standings pulled up between me and you? Do you know what the difference is?
The difference is like for the thing.
Yeah.
I think it's like 23 and 21. I think you have like 23.
Okay.
Let
I'm
me
still in
see.
the lead. I do recall being in the lead.
Yeah, yeah. You have 23. I have 21 out of 40 matches we've done now.
Okay. Do we have
So,
any extra storylines to watch besides the matches we are predicting? I mean, there are
I
some.
mean, we've got some rematches from early stage, or from the first half of the season. I mean, we see London Paris again this week. I think.
No,
No,
we've seen London
am
Paris
I looking?
twice already, so we're not going to see it
Okay.
again.
What was I thinking of then? Let me see. I don't know what I
We're
was thinking
seeing
of.
we're seeing Boston London, which could be interesting. Last time London blew them out, but Boston always has the chance for an upset. Um,
Yeah.
Guangzhou
It's-
Chengdu again, another Chinese team matchup.
Houston's only got one match, but it's against New York.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Houston seems to show up in matches against really good teams, so maybe something could happen, but we'll see what happens. We're not predicting Gladiators versus Fuel, right? That should also be a really good match. Gladiators have two great matches this week.
Yeah.
But I don't think two Paris Boston should be a good one too. Um, but besides that, I mean, the four matches we have to predict are going to be fantastic. And the first one starts off with the Giant Killers, the Atlanta Reign, coming off two NYXL victories, facing off against the San Francisco Shock, another giant that they possibly would like to kill. But do you think they can do it, Show? Is Atlanta just a good matchup against NYX? I mean, San Francisco's a whole nother ball game than New York, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have the same answer, but I thought we said
Oh yeah,
for
I gotta go
this last
first.
week that you have to start because you're
Yes.
ahead. So,
I am picking the Shock to win this one. And it could. I don't know. I don't think Atlanta. I think this will be 4-0. I don't think this one's going to be close. Shock win. What do you got,
um,
Joe?
yeah, so yeah, same thing for me. I mean, if it does happen and Atlanta picks this up, I think we're gonna go absolutely nuts. Um, it's fair to say. I mean, um, because this is the only time outside of playoffs that that they're gonna play, which is cool. It's not like they're gonna get a second rematch like they did with New York, but yeah, you really can't bet against San Francisco Shock because again, there's like essentially zero things different from stage three to stage two, as far as we know, which is unfortunate, but that's the reality we're looking at, um, and yeah, because of that, it's not going to get much different for the Shock.
Yeah. Do we? Am I going to start taking Atlanta more seriously if they beat the Shock? Like this is. I feel like I have to take them more seriously if they beat the Shock. Um,
You would think, yeah. I mean, because they're not a bad team for sure. They've got a homestand coming up at the end of stage three too.
yeah. So that'll
Um,
be interesting against pretty easy teams.
yeah,
But yeah, so we both got the Shock, and we will respect Atlanta even more if they win.
for sure.
Um, Next one's Hangzhou Spark versus Philadelphia Fusion, which is on Saturday. We're skipping a day completely. This is between Fusion, who did not make stage playoffs last stage. They had a good stage one, stage two, meh. And the Spark, exact opposite. Bad stage one, good stage two. Um, they made it to the semifinals, upset London in the quarterfinals of the stage playoffs, so they're pretty hot. Both of these teams, middle of the pack in the standings. It's going to be a close one. I guess I have to predict it first. But I'm just going to go off recent form here because But it's hard because Fusion, you never know Fusion's form. Um, but I'm going to go Hangzhou Spark. I think they're just getting better and better, and they're getting more used to. They're getting rid of that stage fright, kind of, which is good for them. I'm going Spark.
Cool. Yeah. It's not super surprising maybe that I am picking Philly here. Partly like you said, um, they are really comparable teams, and to have the chance to come in here, week one. In theory, there's less that these teams would know about each other than they might have it even at the end of stage two. Just with the way things are shaken up. Um, but yeah, it could go either way. I think for it to go towards Philly, it's got to be lots of just strong team play that's been there sometimes and hasn't been there at others. Um, the Phillies tanks can be good. They can be, a little questionable. But I think EQO on the Brig is probably a little bit more consistent than Carpe Zarya, but together it's definitely uh, I could definitely see this going either way, but towards Philly here in this pick that I'm making.
Yeah, it's going to be a close one. I agree with you. Um, Both of them, and that's both their only game this week, so they're both only preparing for each other. Should be a good matchup. Then we move on to Sunday, the first game Sunday, New York, London. This is a classic one, obviously. Have we seen New York and London play each other yet this season?
I in, if not in playoffs, then no, because same
Yeah,
division.
because both of them are. Yep, both of them are happening this stage. Actually, they play each other week 3 of this stage as well. Uh, so the,
Nice.
so this is a big game. Obviously, the two best Atlantic teams last season. I believe they're the two best Atlantic teams now, right? Let me look at the standings. Yes.
Probably by standings, yeah. And
Yep.
I guess I'm trying to think. Yeah, probably just in general too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just in general as well, I would definitely say it. So this is a really big matchup. New York looked a little better this season so far, I would think. Especially record-wise, 12-2 against London's 9-5. But London's a little looking. I mean, they were definitely better in stage two, even though they ended it sort of on a real poor note, getting upset by Hangzhou in the quarterfinals when they definitely should have made semifinals. But I mean, New York does that all the time, so they can do whatever they want. This is another tough one. But I'm gonna go with the London upset here. I like London here. I'm not too hot on New York. I know New York. I mean, New York has really talented players, but I'm not too hot on them too often. They've lost to Atlanta Rain twice, um, and that might be an anomaly or whatever. But I like London's team a lot. Obviously, they're the defending champions. I like their roster a lot. They're getting better at goats every week we see them. So I'm going London.
Yeah, they've definitely turning up. And again, probably to be contrarian, but partly because it's going to be close. I'm going for New York for this series. That again, it's I don't think anybody, at least with credit, is arguing that this is not still a really good team, and whether or not they can pull it together here. I think they definitely got the potential to make this a pretty solid win. Like you said, they've um, on the whole been performing much better than London through the season, and yeah, I guess it might come down to like a map thing. It might it's hard to tell um, with a team like New York, but again we can't see that yet, so it's hard to make that sort of decision. But yeah, I'll go with New York. Sort of the standard following uh, the season standings sort of pick, but it works.
Yeah. Um, Last game of the entire week, and the last game we're predicting: Vancouver, Los Angeles Gladiators. This is the first time we're seeing these two teams face off. Two fantastic teams, obviously. LA Gladiators had a really good stage last stage. Vancouver, they're still undefeated. They're 14-0. They had a worse stage somehow just because they lost in the stage finals to the San Francisco Sharks. They're coming off of what you could call their first loss of the season, even though it doesn't show up in the standings.
Yeah,
Um,
it was something like 278 days or something
yeah,
for those particular players, even
uh,
from Runaway.
yeah. So you gotta wonder, do they just get right back up, or do they stay down for a little bit, especially against a really good Gladiators team? Um, and my answer is they get right back up. Even though I'm a big Gladiators fan, I think they tend to struggle against bigger name teams. I think they'll easily destroy those people below them in the standings, but when it comes to big games like New York in the stage playoffs and stuff like that, it seems like they get easily handled. Um, just because they're not used to those big pressure games. I mean, they got their best player. Decay is still like a rookie in this league. He still seems to have stage fright sometimes when they're in big moments like that. And I think that continues here. I think Vancouver wins this one. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I've got I'm gonna give it the same way. I think like San Francisco in our first pick, Vancouver is just a really hard team to bet against. Um, yeah, they're the only undefeated team in the regular season currently. Um, and while you can argue, oh, New York was that was a flub. Whatever. It's a flub that happened twice. Shock is really good. Vancouver's really good. Gladiators are right there with them. But yeah, I'm with you that I'm not convinced it's going to happen this time. Um, did you say it's happened again later? Or they're playing each other later again?
Probably, if they haven't. I don't think they've played each other yet, so they're probably playing each other
I don't.
again sometime.
I don't know. I think that one we can definitely, sort of reevaluate and see what's going on. But
Yeah, they're
um,
playing. They're playing week 4 of this stage once again.
oh, there you go.
June 30th.
Yes, that'll be a. I guess the rest of the stage isn't too bad though for gladiators, but yeah. So like I said, depending on how this first match goes, we can reevaluate the second. But I think going into it originally, it's really hard not to pick Vancouver.
Yeah, I agree. That's all we got for this episode. So it's definitely a little bit of a shorter one. Our 40 our 40th episode's going to be almost 40 minutes. Um, don't know if that's the best celebration, but I mean, we don't have too much else here. Um,
It'll
unless
work out.
unless you have
We'll
anything
have a
else.
we'll have a full week of competition next week, and
Oh yeah, it'll be
uh,
nice.
maybe trying to think. We won't have a PTR patch because that's basically done. But I think this is the last week of the anniversary event, I want to say.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
probably.
maybe go out and get your skins and whatever.
Yeah, and you can obviously get any skin, so go
It's
get
true.
go get a skin.
Spend all your credits and then buy more loot boxes to get more credits.
Yes, support the game.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
But yeah, that's all we got for you guys this week. If you want to follow us on social media, my personal account is at JWGeorgeIV. Joe's is at Kirkpatrick_Inc. That's INC. Our show has a Twitter account at On The Flank Show. You can go check out our predictions and the standings for our predictions there. You can tweet at us or you can email us on theflankshow@gmail.com if you have any topics you'd like us to talk about. You're listening to this in one way. If you'd like to listen to another, you can go to ontheflank.podbean.com, my personal YouTube channel, John George. You can find that on my Twitter, most likely, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Play. Thank you guys for listening and enjoy the beginning of Stage 3.